Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina, and this is Serena. We are part of Teachers Who Tech. And we're very excited again about having all of you today in this very, very sunny and hot day in Seattle.
It's like July right now. It's crazy. I can't believe it's still April.
That's what...
I got sunburned. This is my face. It's very red.
That's true. That's what the people on the radio were saying yesterday, that this is the perfect and most amazing weather for July. So perhaps we're skipping spring and moving into summer. So, okay, we're ready. So Teachers Who Tech is a company that is located here in Seattle, United States. And we have been in Seattle for the last 3 years. We started in 2016, where we had summer camps, professional development, and also free tech talks with different people around Seattle. And now what we do is we encourage an interdisciplinary curriculum. And why we do this, because we want the teachers and the students understand that when we learn about something, it comes from different places. So we use project-based learning as well as design thinking as our main frameworks. And we have presence here in the United States, also in China, in Beijing, and in Ecuador. As I mentioned before, we have been working in Ecuador for the past 2 years and having professional development in different cities, Joya de los Hachas, Ibarra, and of course Quito, the capital of Ecuador. All right.
So part of this series that we've been doing with monthly webinars kind of started to expand our Latin American presence, and we've been providing them in Spanish. And so we're very excited for this month to be offering our webinar in English as well. And that will also continue every month as we have more topics. And if you can continue to join us, that will be great.
Yeah. And thank you so much to all the people who registered for the webinar. These are free webinars, but we encourage everyone to, give us some ideas of what you are interested in terms of education. And that's how we end up choosing this topic. But before we continue, we're going to tell you about a little bit about us and about the past webinars. Do you want to start?
Oh, yeah. So like I said, I'm Serena Merle. I'm a co-founder here at Teachers Who Tech. I've been involved in education for over 10 years through tutoring, through being a teaching assistant when I was in my undergrad program, and then teaching. I taught English as a second language in South America at different universities and high schools, and also math in various organizations. After that, I was coordinator of a high school program for international students in California. And most recently, since coming to Seattle, my focus in education has been more in special education. I got my master's degree in speech language pathology in order to be more involved in students that have different learning diagnostics or learning differences, especially with autism or attention deficit, to be able to better understand and serve and support the classrooms and the teachers and the schools and parents as well.
Yeah, and I am Cristina Paredes. I am the founder of the company Teachers Who Tech. And I have more than 10 years of experience in education, and I started in Ecuador with volunteering in a nonprofit organization. Actually, we both were volunteering in this nonprofit organization called SHARE, where I learned how to use concrete materials to teach math, and I just fell in love with that. So my first experience in education was actually teaching teachers, and it was just fascinating. So after 3-4 years, I moved to California, where I pursued my master's in education, and I focus on STEM because my background is in computer science. So I thought that was a really nice way of integrating all of these two of my passions, technology and education. And when I finished with that, I moved to Seattle, and I was the director of technology for 3 years in a school called Lake Washington Girls Middle School. And it was amazing because I had the opportunity not only to be in charge of the technology, but also to create some classes and have fun with my students. And now I have Teachers Who Tech, where we provide professional development, K-12 teachers, and we have after-school programs, and all of these are interdisciplinary using project-based learning, as I mentioned before. And we are just now having fun with this weather and very ready and excited to go ahead with this webinar.
Okay, so like I mentioned, our past webinars that we provided January, February, and March are on our Facebook page and also our web page. And the titles are here. They're in Spanish. We are working on re-recording these in English so that the same resources will be available regardless of language. But the topics were innovation in the classroom, project-based learning, and motivation, attention, and participation have been our past topics. And like Christina said, the form that we included with our Facebook post is just for us to gain more insight about what are topics that would be beneficial to you and to other teachers, so that we can be creating that community and serving the area that would be most applicable.
Yeah, if you are, if you know a little bit about Spanish, or if in your school the Spanish teacher needs some help with something related with innovation, with project-based learning, so here are some materials for them, so you can, encourage them to look, to watch our videos. Also, people in public schools, Para Educador, and they are also using a lot of resources in Spanish. So if you know someone who is looking for information in Spanish, so the tools are here.
For immediate information, but like I said, the English versions are coming, and all of the future monthly free webinars will be provided in both Spanish and English. So be on the lookout for our May webinar next month. For today, our topic is inclusive education. And this could have a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people, depending on
where they live,
where you live, or what your school focuses on, or what kind of trainings or articles or anything you've seen. But we've picked this topic today because we feel like it's very broad and we can cover a lot of things that could be applicable regardless of your grade, school, or education involvement, because it's a lot of understanding ourselves and understanding the people that we work with.
And that is why we're going to start with this. Can you go to the next one?
Yes.
So the objectives for today are inclusive education, inclusive vision, inclusive environment, and how to implement certain things that we're going to share. So don't go, keep tuned, and some strategies also. And because this is about inclusiveness, we're going to share a lot of the many examples of what we done in our classes, but also we're going to share about ourselves. And we're going to start with this. What do you know about me? In this case, about us, right?
Okay.
If you look at us right now, then you can probably say, well, Serena is taller than Christina. Both are wearing glasses. Both can speak English. Things that are very obvious, right? So we have some cute pictures about us when we were little, and that's Serena.
Aww. So just a little bit more about me personally. I am from Michigan, born and raised there. I have a family of 6, my parents, and 2 older brothers and 1 younger brother. And also various cats and dogs throughout my whole upbringing. And like you said, I'm a native English speaker, but I also speak Spanish as well.
All right. And this is a picture of me when I was, I think, 5 years old. I have 3 brothers and 1 older sibling. So we are 7, mom and dad. I was living in Ecuador until I was 23 or 24 years old. And I'm fluent in Spanish, and I am very good at English, I think. I can't say I'm fluent in English. I'm not sure about that yet. But that's pretty much what, if you look at us, you can probably think, okay, yeah, they speak English. Maybe Christina is from a different country because she has an accent. She also has an accent.
It comes out when I talk to my dad, when I say dad.
So those are the obvious things, right? But
so it's like if you meet somebody, oh, hi,
hey,
what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah.
And then maybe your family. But that's very superficial, right? So what do you know about me? A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what we wanted to also offer to you is something a little bit more personal that's shaped how we think about the world, experiences that have marked us in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me is when I think about education, unfortunately, I had a pretty rough time when I was in elementary and high school. So thinking about that, I was not really good at school, and I had to repeat fourth grade and then fifth grade. So it was very rough. My parents were not that happy with that, and I was not happy either. There were a lot of things going on. But thinking about that and thinking about what my teachers did for me or the words that they use, that's what now I wanted to be a role model for my students. That's what I want. I want to provide the best tools that I can because of my experience as a student. And that's I think, one of the most important things in how I'm shaping my philosophy as a teacher.
Yeah, and I think it's something that people wouldn't think. You own an educational company, you're a teacher, and yet you struggled so much in school, and that has shaped you very significantly. Oh, thank you, David. David just posted that. Don't feel free to ask questions as we go. We can see on the bottom of the screen your comments and questions. So if something pops up, we'll be able to respond to that. So ask any questions as they come along. Yeah, that I think is very significant.
What is the experience that you have that it's very impactful in your life?
Yeah, for me, it's where I'm from. So I said I'm from Michigan, but more specifically, I'm from Dansville, Michigan. And Dansville is a little town. It's not even a town. It is a village of less than 500 people. That's it. So we didn't have any stoplights or no way. There's no movie theater. There wasn't even a gas station until I was in high school, which was very exciting. And so with that, I had a very narrow-minded view of the world, right? I didn't ever ride in a taxi. There wasn't even buses that went by. And so people literally drove their tractors to school.
That sounds really fun to me. I wish I was there.
Fun, possibly for, a day or two. But in that, I think there was a lot of pieces of just gossip flew around really fast. Everyone knew everybody. Very, very small school that I went to. And so,
but also people can help really fast.
And you also knew everybody. There's a very positive thing about that. Things were safe. Mostly. I didn't have to worry about walking out on the street at night because everybody knew me and there weren't cars. And so I think it was just something it's definitely shaped me as a person because I come from a very small town. I had no idea what it was like to live in a city until I went to the university, and it was a little bit of a shock for a bit. But that's my personal piece. So additionally, we think that what is our kind of professional piece, or what do you know about yourself as an educator?
Yes, and this is very important. I think understanding who you are and what are the things that are more positive in your life really helps you as a teacher. Like for me, I really love to work with middle schoolers, right? This is the time where their body is just they need a lot of resources. They need a lot of food. They're always tired. They're growing. They are grumpy. And it's just so much fun to me to be part of that. And I think I also, I get a lot of energy from all of these up and downs from my students. It is a little bit more challenging. Not I cannot do it, but it's more challenging for me to work with high schoolers. I remember when I was in high school and I was not quite there. So I think maybe I'm also scared because of my background. But when I was in high school, I didn't pay too much attention to my teachers. I learned from them, but I didn't want to talk to them. That I'd rather teach middle schoolers and also adults. I love professional development. I get a lot of new ideas, and it's just so much fun to be with adults. What about you?
For me, I'm the opposite. That middle school age is very challenging. I really like the little ones, like birth to 5. And that one, I mean, they're so cute. And
so you're working with parents more
it's
than
the
with
parents,
kids.
though.
Okay.
I think that's the piece that I find a lot of connection with, is to encourage and to understand and just reflect with parents about this whole process, because kids don't come with manuals. We all know that. And it's challenging. And the other piece I like are the teenagers, like 15 and up, getting out of high school, trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. I think that they're just in this state of wanting to connect with people, not knowing who they are, trying to find an identity. And so it's really exciting.
We have different visions of high schoolers, completely different visions. But that is good. Understanding what is your population, what's your target population, it really is going to help you. So even when you're thinking about applying to get a job in education, right? Like for me, I can teach high schoolers, but I'd rather not to. So I always end up going into this middle school area, right? So it just helps a lot when you know what are the population that you feel more compelling to. And also with this, you're teaching philosophy.
Right. So I think, have you ever asked yourself, I don't think we ask enough, but like, why did you become a teacher, or how did you get into education? And so for you, thinking about,
I never thought I want to be a teacher.
Yeah, like having such a rough education experience as a student wasn't part of your plan.
No, it wasn't. But fortunately, in all of these years, I had amazing people next to me helping me and sharing a lot of information and sharing a lot of good ideas. I think also those are the parts that shape my philosophy. And everything that you have. But it is very important to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What is that part that makes me feel really happy? And also, what are those parts where I feel very challenged?
Right. And it's important to come back to that, because I think that you like that. Like, what is the part that makes you feel really happy? Some of us could feel stuck in this, or like, why am I doing this anymore? Because the fire has kind of faded, or there's so many hoops to jump through that it's just tedious and starts to wear at you. But if we come back to that initial passion, that's why our motto for our company is passion for learning, because we believe all teachers are in this role because we have a passion for helping students succeed. Regardless of background, country, language, that's the common goal. So what about the students? Before that. I think it's very important. I really like this sentence. Your class reflects your values and beliefs, because understanding about yourself and what is your teaching philosophy, that is what you're bringing in your class. And your students, if you're a teacher, they know who you are. They know what are your values, and they know if you are there if you are there because you have a passion. So make sure that you understand all of that, because that is what you are providing to your students. So your class reflects your values and beliefs. Okay. Now students. What do you know about your students? So let's say it's the first day of a new group of students, and you walk in the classroom, and what do you see? Well,
like from this GIF, I see there's I think they're girls, and they all are wearing same color of, I think they're uniforms,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 40 students. I see some of them have dark hair. Some of them are blondie, I think. Yeah, like very obvious, right? Very obvious. Someone comes to your class and you automatically start seeing all of those things that are obvious.
Right, and it's kind of like, I don't know if maybe you've heard this before, but if that example, if you walk in and your hair is wet and then you ask the students, what do you know? And then they say, oh, you got rained on, or you didn't dry your hair after the shower. But they don't know any of that. All that they know is that your hair is wet.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we have to stop and try to make a separation between all the assumptions and stereotypes that we're relying on and actually what's the reality in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a natural tendency. As humans, we categorize and we try to associate, are you similar or are you different from me? In which ways?
Yeah. And we don't do that because we want to hurt. But it's just part of who we are, right? Like having all of these categories really helps our brain, right? I have you now a part of this group, and then the next time when I see you, you're part of that group. So my brain is going straight to that part that reminds me, okay, who you are.
But thinking about inclusive education, we have to start thinking about, are we relying too heavily on our own assumptions and stereotypes and biases? For example, like if you see a child and his name is Carlos Martinez, you think, oh, he's Mexican, or, oh, his parents probably don't speak English. Do you know that? All you know is his name.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really hard. When I was studying abroad in Nebraska, and I remember I was doing some papers with the registrar, and then I said, I'm from Ecuador, and then she kept asking me if I'm from Mexico. And I just couldn't understand that, right? Like in her mind, seeing a person like me, it was just in this category. So that's what it was. I was not upset, but I was just like, I couldn't understand what was happening. And then at some point I just said like, no, I'm from Ecuador.
It can be upsetting because she's kind of making a cut in your identity by an assumption that not always is true. Yes, stereotypes exist because it might be true for a majority of that group, but if we are considering our students based on our own assumptions and stereotypes, then we're not doing them service of getting to know who they are as individuals. All of them have their own unique ideas, identities, and personalities. And if all we're doing is just assuming, okay, this student has dirty clothes, so then maybe they come from a family with a lower socioeconomic status, or all of these things that could possibly automatically be hurtful.
Yes. And Jim is asking a question, what is our opinion about current education with the kids? Well, we know we can do always so much better. That's what we know. Current education in what I do, it depends, right? Where? For me, I think what I do is I'm providing the best and it's working. In terms of the world, well, everyone is doing what they can. And what we can do at this point is provide these webinars and show what we do, and maybe that helps. Right. So thank you for the question. I think that should be another webinar where everyone is just talking about that.
That'd be fun.
It could be.
I think current education is just, we're always thinking about how to make progress and how to move forward.
Yeah. How to help students.
Yes, exactly. We just want to help students be successful. Okay, and so thinking about our students, how can we know more about them as individuals and about their identity?
And we talk a little bit. Stop when you're in that first day of classes and really pay attention to your students and really ask what they can bring to the class, right? What do you the more you know about your students, the better it's going to be. And now that we're talking about this identity and culture, it's really, really important. So we have the definitions here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So identity, I can go backwards. set of traits and characteristics of a person or object that allows he, she, or it to be distinguished from others in this set. So kind of like what we were saying, we're categorizing how are you different from me. That's an identity. And versus culture, set of knowledge, ideas, traditions, and customs that characterize a town, social class, time period, classroom, family, or individual. And the difference, I think, here is that with identity, we're trying to think of how are you different. And with culture, we're thinking about how are we alike. And they go hand in hand. But culture is not just race and ethnicity at all. Culture can be something very, very personal. I mean, yes, Christina and I have very different backgrounds growing up in different countries, different languages, different education systems, and that has shaped our culture. But my culture compared to my neighbor's culture could be very different. My family, you know, was tradition that we had to eat dinner around the dinner table every single night. And there wasn't ever exceptions. I mean, even if we got pizza or something, we still had to sit and talk around the dinner table of how our day was. But for many of my peers, they ate in front of the TV or in the rooms, or, I mean, that's culture. It's a different set of customs or traditions that we understand or do. It's not always defined by where we're from or how we look or how we speak. It definitely is related, but it goes beyond that.
Yeah. And identity and culture change all the time.
Yes.
Right? Like you mentioned. And I was in Ecuador for 24, 25 years. And at that time, I had certain things that I was used to do and the food that I like at that time. Now it's changed a lot. And now I see some of the cultural things that I used to do in Ecuador. That's a very important part of me, but I'm not doing it anymore, right? Like eating fanesca. Fanesca is a traditional food in Ecuador for the Day of the Dead.
No, that's Easter.
Oh, Easter?
Fanesca's Easter.
She knows more than me.
Yeah.
I don't eat that food anymore. And even if I am in Ecuador at that time when we have this festivity, I don't do it anymore. But I have that. I remember as a good time, right? I didn't eat a lot of Chinese food or Indian food when I was in Ecuador because there is not a big population or a lot of restaurants there. But now I do it here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changing constantly. And the same thing with your students, the same thing with your population. You have students every single year. And even if they are from the same town, 500, all of them are completely different every single year.
Definitely. And we have a culture of our classroom. And so if we think about, we want the culture of our classroom to be inclusive, how can we do that? And so thinking about what is inclusive education.
And we have, we've seen a lot of different ways of explaining what is inclusive education, but we really like this one from the UNESCO. UNESCO. And
okay, so this is their kind of written out definition of inclusive education. Inclusion is the process of identifying and responding to the diverse needs of all students through increased participation in learning, the culture and community, and reducing exclusion in education. It involves changes and modification to content, approaches, structure, and strategies with a common vision that includes all students of all ages, and the belief that it's the educational system's responsibility to educate all children. So a couple main points with this is that we have to identify first the diverse needs of our students. And then we respond to them, right? So if we don't really understand what the needs of our students are, how can we make changes? And it's going to be different with every class.
So you have to pay attention. Right. And in the past, in our past webinars, we talk about increasing participation. And this is why it's important. You want to increase participation in your class, you have to pay attention of who are the people who are in your class, right? So you are identifying the problem as, okay, there's not a lot of people who are participating in my class. What can I do to make that different?
Right.
So,
and we talk about reducing exclusion, right? Why is inclusive education this topic, this concept? Because unfortunately, there's certain aspects of our educational system and through society and historical trends, there's a lot of exclusion. And so exclusion because students learn differently. Not all students are good test takers, and that's kind of how we base their success in our system. Not all students can hear something just one time and remember it. And we have a lot of processes that are automatically excluding. And so if we can consider and think about these to reduce exclusion, then we're making these changes to our approaches and strategies so that we are reaching all students. It's not a privilege, it's a right to have education.
Yes. Okay.
That's our little soapbox. Okay. So how do we begin doing it? I like this. So kind of we've already started, right?
Yep.
Through self-awareness, right? We have to reflect. We have to understand, first of all, where are we coming from and what are we bringing to our classrooms? And this, you talked about a little bit about preferences.
And then I can provide an example of this.
Yeah.
I, for example, love to be next to students who are really intense and loud. Because of my classes are all about project-based learning, they're always making something and they're always in groups. And I notice that I tend to go to these groups that are very loud, right? The ones that are like very crazy and chaotic, they are the ones that I want to be next to because they provide a lot of fuel for me. On the other hand, the students who are they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, creating, they're sharing with their peers, but they're not that loud and they're like very sometimes quiet, right? I don't go to those students quite often. And I know that is not good because my students could say, oh, I know Christina, she has preference in the classroom. And it is true. It is true, I have that. But how can I make that, now that I have this self-awareness, how can I use that as something to encourage me to be a better teacher? And we talk a lot about this. This doesn't happen
Actually,
now.
this whole awareness, it wasn't as much of a self-awareness, and sometimes we can't really see that. She actually invited teachers to her class, and part of the response of that was, I noticed that you're spending a lot of time with these loud kids, and you don't really go over to the more quiet kids that often. So what are we showing is a preference, but the kind of the unintentional response of that is that you're providing so many more opportunities for learning to these other students that you're more attracted to because of their energy. And the other students, you're not getting the same engagement because you weren't talking to them.
And one of the strategies for that was creating a list of things that I have to do, right? Every time that I have this project, I go and ask to every single person in the classroom and ask these questions. So then I know if I'm with this group, certain questions, and then I move to the next one. So that is how I make sure that I'm serving my students in the best way. And it's been a huge thing for me, and now I'm more used to, and it's like natural.
Right.
But knowing that I'm doing that, it was a huge help. So self-awareness, it's always going to be one of the main elements for you to start with this inclusive classroom. You want it to be inclusive, then you have to start recognizing what are those things that you can improve about yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So these next images that we're going to show, you might have seen them before, but we just want to talk about them and how they relate to being an inclusive classroom. So this first image we see, there's 3 boys. They want to see this baseball game. And there's a tall boy, kind of a middle boy, and a short boy. And what we see here is that this is equal. All boys they're all standing on a box. But what do we see is that the short boy can't see the game still. So even though this is equal, this is not fair. And what is fair is that everyone has what they need. So what we see in the second image is that the tall boy actually didn't need a box in the first place. And the middle height boy only needs 1, and the short boy has 2 boxes. They could be girls. I'm making an assumption that they're boys actually, probably because they have short hair. So So here, what we have is, it's also the difference what we talk about, what is equality and what is equity. Mm-hmm. So equality is the same. It's everyone is alike, mm-hmm. but it's not necessarily equitable. And in this case, equitable is the same as fair. Mm-hmm. What is fair is that I have what I need. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times kids will say, oh, it's not fair, la, 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 it's not fair. And they're right, it's not fair.
But it's
not equal, but it is fair. They're using it, yeah.
I'm sorry. It seems like these are just like fixes for the moment, right?
Right.
So what is the main problem in these images? Like if we are teachers and this is our problem, what is the problem here? What is the main problem?
Well, yeah, the problem is the fence, because what were to happen if a couple other kids came and they want to see the game too, and we don't have any more crates, we don't have any more boxes?
Mm-hmm. Then they probably will have to take turns.
They'll have to take turns, they're going to push each other, and
they're going to end up not really seeing the whole game.
Yeah.
And we really like this next image because it shows a very concrete resolution of this problem.
Right. So if we're thinking about, back to the definition, we can't just think about what are their needs, but we have to think about what our systems are. Mm-hmm. So in this case, the fence is the problem. They can't see. But what if it was a chain link fence? Mm-hmm. Then we don't even need the resources anymore. They can all see because we fixed the systematic problem. Any other kids that come up, they're all going to be able to see. They still can't get into the game. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the whole point of the fence. But now that it's see-through, they have the holes in it, mm-hmm. we don't need to have the resources there anymore. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when we're thinking about our inclusive classrooms, it's not just about what resources, I don't have enough resources, but can we think about what is actually what is that barrier that's causing this difference in access?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can't see that.
It's
right?
very true.
So it is important to invite people from outside, another teacher. Maybe your school is going to allocate some budget for having professional development, and this is very important, right? If you can't recognize the main problem, then how can you fix it?
That's true. Yeah, we're just kind of like treating the symptoms, mm-hmm. and we're not actually fixing the problem. Like, if we're taking medicine and we actually need to go to the doctor and get something else, mm-hmm. but we're just taking medicine for a cough. It's the same thing.
Sounds familiar. All right. So these images are really good and interesting. The last one is fairly new, right?
Yeah, it's an addition to this original concept about what is equal and what is fair, or what is equality and what is equitable, into the case of liberation of needs. So in here, it's not about equal or fair. It's more about we are liberated from this problem because we addressed the systematic barrier in the first place. So this is related to another way of being inclusive in our classrooms, is making sure that all of us, teachers, students, other teachers in classrooms, and the administrators and parents are on the same page with vocabulary terminology. Certain terminology that's really important that helps us understand how we relate to each other. And these same words that we talked about could be part of that, like what's equal, mm-hmm. or what's fair. Mm-hmm. When they say, oh, it's not fair, it's actually, yes, it is fair because everyone has what they need. Or this kind of liberty or this freedom from additional resources. Mm-hmm. Something that we've talked about in past webinars that will be coming in English is this concept about the power of the word yet. And that if students are like, I can't, or I don't know, then their learning or their attempts to problem solve stops there.
Yes. And that's why it's very important to add the yet. And what happened with my students is at the beginning, they think about this like it's a joke, right? Because I tell them, I can't yet. And they become saying that word until it's just part of them. But it really makes a huge change. Like you say, saying I can't or I don't know, it's just...
I don't know and I don't care.
Exactly. I don't know and I don't care, right? I don't know yet. It gives this space for us to ask more questions, for them to reflect about what they're doing. So I think also having the same vocabulary, like in this case, that adding the yet, right? So when they are at home, parents are also encourage them to use the word yet. And also they are using the word yet. Because sometimes we also say, I can't.
Yeah.
And you can and you don't want to do it, right? It happens. But I think it is important because we want a classroom that is very inclusive, that we provide this tool that at the beginning is going to be forced.
Right. But yeah, and that's the last piece is what we wanted to talk about. So this last line here, words that hurt, even though it might be obvious that, okay, we don't call somebody else stupid or our own selves, which is actually more damaging when we say, I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb, I didn't know the answer. Or when we call other people, those words are obvious that they're hurtful. We know that they always carry a negative connotation. And it's easy to catch those and say, hey, don't say that. But the et cetera is here in order for us to highlight that there's certain words that actually represent certain groups of people, certain cultures, or certain identities that are being used in a negative way, in a connotative way. For example, saying something is somebody's retarded, or that's so gay, or other words that are associated with different ethnicities, should be absolutely abolished in your classrooms and your education settings. Because if we allow that, then what we've done is we've basically
saying that
dismiss that entire group of people. And if we have students in our classroom that associate or have family members or friends or just compassion for those types of people, then we created right now a complete separation that we don't really care to associate with those people.
And it can be just at a time, right? Like sometimes I'm going to say yes, and sometimes I'm going to just ignore and pretend like nothing is happening. You remember, again, what you are is what you bring into your classroom, and students are going to notice if you really care about them. And I think being sure that these words are not used in your classroom, it's going to reduce a lot of the stress on you, right? And also on your students, because what they're doing right now, what they're learning right now is what they're going to bring to life,
right,
in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Couple other strategies. Okay, this is a really funny video. It goes along with role plays, but we always make fun of this with soccer players, how they exaggerate when they get hurt. But role plays is
yeah, role plays are very, very important. We don't have a lot of experience with different things in our classrooms, right? So for us, if we've never experienced something,
what are you going to do when it happens? A lot of people think like role plays are really immature, or they feel silly. But if everyone needs to do them, whether it's our students all need to do these role plays, or we need to do these role plays in a all staff meeting or in a professional development or something, then the whole silliness piece, it goes away after a couple seconds, because the power of being able to do that future planning and processing of something before it actually happens, or hopefully it never happens in certain cases. Like, what if a student came up to you and said like, oh, I'm so mad, I just want to kill Carlos. Like, that's pretty extreme. What are you going to say? But if you practice that, then...
We practice this so many times. That's what I'm laughing now. And it is true. I mean, in this case, when you are in a role play, right, probably you don't know the answer of this, but maybe older people, older teachers, the administration, they can also say, hey, this is what I could say if something like that happens. So it's not just you. And also knowing you're gonna see who are those teachers or that people in your community that can help you if something like this happens. So it brings a lot of different positivity. Understanding or hearing from others, what can you say if something like that happens, and also seeing who can help you, right?
And especially because here we are as educators, teachers, but our role is so much more than that. When we're dealing with the lives of our students, that we turn into guidance counselors, therapists, and all the time, right? We have to help them resolve conflicts and help them learn how to integrate into society and with others.
Mhm.
And that's not teaching. That's not necessarily like, okay, what year did this war happen? That's not in the books, but that's part of our responsibility.
Yeah, because when
that's more important.
When we're talking about inclusive education, is that like if something is happening in your classroom and students are not focused, you're not just going to continue teaching. You're going to stop your classroom and you're going to try to find what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is being inclusive in your classroom, which if you don't know, if you never experienced that, again, these role plays are going to help you.
Yes. Along with those kind of role plays is sharing experiences and working with others. Related to sharing experiences, something that could be just so simple as coming in. What was the one that you told? Coming in late. Okay, so let's say you come into the classroom and you just share with your students. You're just like, I had such a rough morning. My cell phone, I forgot to charge it, and my alarm didn't go off, and I was supposed to arrive here at the school at 7, and I woke up at 10:07. And so to rush out, and I didn't eat breakfast, and I forgot my lunch. I'm all jumbled up.
So now your students know that you are a human being.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
But you can also extend it to be like, have any of you had moments like this?
Yeah.
And then what you see is that we start to create connections, especially connections between students that don't normally associate. So let's say the girls and the boys, they see like, we both have had this kind of situations, or certain students that just maybe the loud ones and the quiet ones. We can relate like that. And when we can see those connections that we are similar, then we're creating this inclusive classroom.
Especially in middle school where they all are always tired.
They're crazy.
Right? They're always tired. After the spring break, they came and they were tired.
Yeah. And the working with others is something that happens very naturally in our classrooms. We always have them pair up and work in small groups, and they have to do different projects and things like that. But we can be intentional about how we divide them up.
Yeah, and something that helps me in this is that the first time I tell my students that they're going to decide who's going to be with them in their groups. And most of the time, they go with their best friends, right? And then I said the second time, I'm going to choose. And why do I do it in this way? Because when they work with their friends, then I know if they can actually work with them. And then when I said, now it's my turn and you're going to work with this other person, I can also say why, right? And another thing that I really like is when we do this naming on the sticks.
Just like random selection,
right? So they know they're going to have more than 3 projects, and then they're going to be working with pretty much everyone.
The name on the sticks, for those of you that don't really know what that is just a strategy for being able to call on students without having them raise their hands or grouping up. You just write all of the kids' name on a popsicle stick, a craft stick, and you have it in a cup. So if you're going to be if you have a question that's for the whole class, instead of having them raise their hands, which we know the same 3-4 students always raise their hands, we could just like pull a name out and be like, okay, Matt, what's the answer? And it was random. It's not like we're picking on him because he was sleeping. It's just random. Or we could say, okay, we're going to do groups of 3. Johnny, Matt, Ryan. Boom. There's a group. Okay. So that's another strategy. But what is all this for?
Why are we doing this? Right? When you think about an ecosystem that works and it looks beautiful is because it has a more diversity, right? When you have students who think in so many different ways and they can share a lot of different points of view, then you also have new ideas. And the really good thing about having new ideas is that you can create new resources. So then everyone could have all of this and be more successful in your class. And like yesterday we were talking about the Amazon, and there's always problems with the Amazon because it seems like people keep cutting more trees.
The Amazon jungle, not Amazon company.
Oh, that's true. We're here in Seattle. What's happening is that many animals are disappearing, right? Or they're moving to other locations.
Mm-hmm.
So that is exactly what's happening with our society. When we don't include everyone, when there's not all of this diversity, what's happening is that we are pushing further and further away the people. Now in Seattle, we have people who are going more and more outside of the cities because we are not having this idea of inclusiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So we want this in our students.
Yes.
So that is the what for. And why?
Well, like we mentioned before, we as teachers have such a powerful impact as schools,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the first context for them to understand the world beyond their homes,
Mm-hmm.
without their parents, without their siblings. And so if we're being inclusive about it, if we're showing that these values are important and that we're not excluding based on these stereotypes or norms or historical
Mm-hmm.
tendencies, then that mindset of how to relate with others in a very compassionate, inclusive way continues
Mm-hmm.
when they're going to get jobs, or when they're going to have their own families,
Mm-hmm.
or just as a citizen
Yeah.
of society.
With their friends, right?
With their friends,
If
yeah.
they learn what is being inclusive, then they're going to do the same thing with their friends when they're working in a company, when they're looking for different things, because now it's part of them.
Right.
So,
Right.
and the other part is that when you have all of this in your classroom, you're going to be more efficient to problem solving, because you're giving these different skills now to them, right? Because we were talking about the same problem but with different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to also bring these ideas to other places.
Right. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because we think about things differently based on our backgrounds and our experiences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you wouldn't have that if you don't have diversity, if you don't have inclusiveness in your classroom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to wrap up, we're getting close to being done. We've talked about different ways that we are kind of unintentionally using assumption, stereotype, and bias. So how can we be self-reflective, thinking about our culture and identity and that of our students as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and also how we can collaborate with our community in order to implement some of these ideas around inclusive education.
Yep. Again, your class reflects your values and beliefs. So start with yourself, and also ask the teachers who are with you in your school. Ask your husband, your wife, whoever is part of your family. Ask them what they think, what they know about the word inclusiveness. And then with that, you just keep adding more and more to provide the best education. And it's not just you as a teacher, but it's you also as a part of this society.
Mm-hmm.
So we are very excited about this about this webinar.
Okay.
These were the objectives for today. We talk about what is inclusive education, the vision, your philosophy, and the environment, and how you make sure that everyone is part of your curriculum. And now we're gonna close this, allowing you to ask us questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any question, please
Okay.
let us know. I don't know if we can look into.
Let me see.
I
I saw somebody had posted a nice comment, I don't know who did, about how Ecuador is recognized for their richness and diversity of animals and their ecosystems, which is nice, like being from Ecuador.
Yeah, thank you. So remember that we are going to create more webinars next. We're probably gonna start with the webinars that we already have in Spanish, so then you can also have the same resources in English. But if you like to look at those, you can go to our webpage, www.teacherswhotech.com, and you can also go to our webpage on Facebook, and make sure to like our page. And if you have any questions, if you were not able to participate on this webinar live, you can ask us questions. We are very excited about this. This is a great opportunity for us to help. It's not that we know everything, but what we know, we love to share.
Mm-hmm. And a quick little pitch, we are offering a professional development here in Seattle in partnership with the Pacific Science Center. We're really excited about it. It's a 2-day training for teachers, Saturday, June 30th and Sunday, July 1st. So it's after the school year ends, a little bit getting into the summer break. But we're talking a lot about what's innovative classroom. We look at inclusiveness as well. We talk about some more about the motivation, participation, and attention topics and how that can all integrate into having a classroom that promotes new ideas, these innovative ways to collaborate and to problem solve.
So the 2 days again is going to be from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Pacific Science Center. If you want to register, you can go to teacherswhotech.com, and then there's a registration link. And if you have any question about this or any of our webinars or any of the things that we do, professional development or after school programs, please don't hesitate and send us an email to info@teacherswhotech.com, or you can also
send us a message on Facebook. You can put a comment here.
Yeah.
We'll find it.
Thank you so much. It's been such a great opportunity for us. It's really hot, so now you can go outside and enjoy this beautiful.
If you're here in Seattle.
If you're here in Seattle, yes, to this beautiful July day, and then we'll see you next month. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.